stormwater training this morning.
Okay, I'll keep my eye on you.
If I start to doze off, give me a jingle.
Okay, everyone. I think we have everyone here. People may trickle in a moment, so that's fine. But it is June 17th, 2020. It is 1:07 p.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. It is being audio and video recorded. It's being streamed live on YouTube, and the recording will be played on Channel 9 in the future as well. So first on the agenda is to have a joint meeting with the Council on Aging, Board of Directors, the Library Board of Trustees, and the Pandemic Reopening Task Force to discuss 3 items: Primetime, library services, and the potential moving of library services due to concerns over the library. I don't know if everyone got the packet, but we did in the packet have a couple of letters from our fire chief, building commissioner, and health agent, who are, I believe, members of the Pandemic Reopening Task Force. So I wanted to start with our town administrator, if you wanted to lay the foundation for the discussion. And then I just want everyone to be, I know everyone might have strong opinions on the discussion we're about to have, so I just want everyone to, it's okay to express your opinion, let's remain respectful, and everyone will get a chance to speak.
Jim, could you do me a favor and just mute your phone? So thank you. This is not, that's a nice segue, Chairman Zagrafis. This is not an easy thing to tackle. There's a lot of moving parts, but when the Pandemic Reopening Task Force got together once phase 2 hit, or in preparation for phase 2, really, to figure out how we are going to continue services of the town, Primetime and the library come up because they are the most public, aside from Council on Aging, Primetime, Council on Aging, and library, they're the most public of our services, with continued things going on, different people, lots of different people, group activity. And so we've all come really to this, we've met twice with the Board of Directors at the Council on Aging discussing the trials of putting Primetime together in a COVID-19 world. And we're waiting for guidance from the state for, something that would be a similar program. But Dr. Hoy, who's not here today, he has been watching very vigilantly. And so me personally, I don't want to speak for the rest of my committee, but me personally, I was really in tune to what his recommendations would be and what he was discussing, what he was concerned about. And so, as we all know, nursing homes are now allowed to have outdoor visitation only, but it's not so much more than that. So we don't know how we can open up Primetime in this phased reopening plan. So it's been closed indefinitely by the Council on Aging Board of Directors, and they have pledged, I guess, is a good word to use, to meet monthly to discuss that, continue discussing. They don't generally meet in the summer, but I believe you will be. Correct me if I'm wrong, but just to continue monitoring this situation. At our Pandemic Reopening Task Force meeting, we also were talking about library services. And right now they're open for curbside, and then they do have their digital content. Employees have been working remotely, managing that content, webinars, and being available throughout this entire pandemic. So services have not stopped. It's just there's no building to enter into. And as the members of the Reopening Task Force, they're also public safety officials. And so when they were devising ways in which the library could open up under guidelines for a, resume, I hate saying this, new normal services in the library, there were a lot of hiccups and obstacles to consider. I do not want to speak for them. They put everything in writing, but that's, I guess, the foundation, if that is okay. And I do want them to have the ability to speak on their concerns. But really what we're charged in doing is reopening our town services safely for both employees and residents or people who may use the services, that even if they're not residents. And we're struggling with Primetime and we're struggling with the library. And that's why this is here today.
So the way I think we should at least start the discussion is now we've heard one of the perspectives from the pandemic reopening task force. I know there's other members who will want to speak and they will during the meeting, but now I'd like to hear from the Council on Aging, and then I'd like to hear from the library. And I don't know if that's going to be Mr. Ferry or Mrs. Souza or both. Oh, I'm sorry, he's on mute. I'm sorry, I had to mute everyone because there was a weird sound. 1 second. I'm sorry, Mr. Ferry, you're on.
Yes, I was hesitant because I wasn't sure if Alice was ready to speak. I can't see her. Alice, did you want to speak?
Council on Aging.
There we go.
Hi, Mrs. Souza, we can hear you now.
I just wanted to say that we're anxious to get Primetime up and going again, and our clients are really upset they're not coming. So we want to see what we can do to get them going again and get this operating like we did before or slightly different. Thank you. Tom, you have something to say?
Yes, also what needs to be shared so we all understand what the COA needs to do is besides what virtual help we can do to our elderly community, the COA part still needs to do types of counseling to help the elderly out, and that cannot be done virtually. And so we need that space for that also.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Madam Administrator.
So, Mrs. Souza, this is for you. I had asked that we reach out again to those families and caregivers on whether they would entertain virtual programming now that COVID-19 has sort of lingered longer than we originally anticipated. Was there any response to that additional survey, that second survey?
I called myself because Sheila was on vacation last week, and the survey that I got, the families and the council, the people themselves, they all want to come back. I haven't had anybody say that they wouldn't come back. And I wrote in each chart what they had said.
Okay.
Thank you.
What about, like, we were asking, we can't bring them back safely. So having it physically in the building isn't what we're able to accommodate for at least the next month or two. Well, June and July, I'll say. Do they express any interest about maybe a Zoom meeting, coffee hour, lunch, anything just to kind of connect them? I know digital platforms are not great. I understand that, but it's something we can provide. Did they chomp at the bit at that at all?
I don't think that would work too much because a lot of these people have dementia and they wouldn't be able to navigate that and get through with it. So I don't think that would be a good way to go.
So you didn't ask them though?
No, I didn't because I know them and I know that they wouldn't be able to do it. Maybe there's one or two that might be able to, but not all of them. In fact, that morning that I was here, I got the same call from the same lady in 3 different times wanting to come back.
Okay, so it sounds like clients, might be eager to resume Primetime services, but it sounds like based on state guidelines, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ferry or Madam Administrator, we're just simply, that's just not permissible. And I'm sorry, Mr. Pilling, I see you nodding. I'm sorry, sir. Okay, so we have heard briefly from Primetime Council on Aging. I'd love to hear from the library, and I don't know if that's going to be someone from the Board of Trustees or if that's going to be our director, Mrs. Tavares, but let me unmute you. I apologize. Okay, Mrs. Tavares and Mr. O'Connor. Okay, Mr. O'Connor and Mrs. Tavares, you are both unmuted. You have the floor.
As of right now, state guidelines allow us to pretty much only provide curbside services and digital services. Step 1 of phase 2 does allow some inside services, but it's only to pick up library materials, which is basically curbside services inside. So we're able to fulfill that right now. We have been getting a lot of inquiries about when people can use computers. That's probably one of the most asked questions we're getting. We've also been getting lots of questions about passport services, which I know the selectmen know that none of that is happening right now through the State Department. So people are looking for in-person services when they can become available. I know that a lot of people are happy to have the curbside services, but I also know we have a lot of browsers and families who will be looking for those in-person services that they've been missing through this time. And we're here to advocate for those residents who will be looking for that.
Mr. O'Connor, did you have anything you wanted to add to that from the Library Board of Trustees? I can't hear you though, Mr. O'Connor. No, we'll have to come back to you. You might have to dial in again, Mr. O'Connor, like you did at our last meeting. Okay. Madam Administrator?
Yep, hi, sorry. I was on
Okay.
mute.
So we have heard from the library and from the Council on Aging / Primetime and the Pandemic Task Force. So if it's okay, I do want to open it up to my colleagues. And then I want to have a wider discussion about specifically option 3, or one of the items of discussion, I should say, which is moving the library services to Primetime. But I do want to get my colleagues, so bear with me one second. Selectman Pacheco?
Yes, I would
Okay.
like to know, I would like to know what phase that prime time can come back. Do we know what phase that is? I know I don't.
1 second, Mr. Pilling has the answer. Sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, from what we were told by DPH, or Mr. O'Connor probably knows better than I do even, but it's expected that it might be phase 4. It might not be in the first 4 phases. It might be after that.
Okay, that's my question at this time. Yep.
Selectman Goulart?
I'm waiting for more information, so I'll comment later.
Okay. So at this time, I mean, we've really heard from everyone in terms of the departmental perspectives, and now I just want to have a broader discussion, and I will call on anyone who I guess wants to speak under the item moving the library services to Primetime. Madam Administrator, do you want to kick us off?
I just want to make kind of a framing statement as to why this is here for discussion. I feel very strongly about trying to open up our services as much as we can safely and through guidance with the state. And so that's why this is proposed as an option. The Primetime facility, with that 25% occupancy rule that we're all living under, and it's why we have split shifts in various departments here at Town Hall and Old Town Hall and the like, is it allows 9 people to be in that building under that roof at once. The library as it stands right now is 2, and that's pushing it. We cannot go more than 2. So if there's 2 workers, you can't really have anybody in there browsing. It's just not going to be feasible without some mega changes. So we're looking at the Primetime building. To us, it's vacant right now because we are not able to do the Primetime services. That program is not able to safely be run right now. So, and we don't have an end in sight, to answer Mr. Pacheco's question. I mean, I'm wondering that too. I was looking to nursing home guidance, daycare guidance, but a lot of that guidance I don't think it would fit with our program. And I think the board of directors agreed as well at our last meeting on June 3rd that it didn't really fit. So we can't really even use that. But because there's more bodies able to be in that program, you can run COA services and you can run some library tech services by appointment only, as we're about to be opening our offices by appointment only at the same time, but still stay under that 9-person rule. So there's more flexibility with the Primetime program, Primetime building. That's why we're looking there. And then again, I want the other 3 members of the task force to weigh in on, their letters and what they sent in to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Administrator. So broader discussion, does anyone want to start? Yeah, Mr. Pilling. And everyone, you can unmute yourself when you go to talk.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot going on here. We are trying to open as much as we can in town as fast as we can. This includes playgrounds, parks, town hall, all of our services. And when we looked at the library, we didn't see that any way they could open and where it is anytime in the near future. And it seemed, I know this is personally, but I know we talked about it as a board, but it was a matter of where could we get the library open in the next 3 to 6 months. And the Primetime building right now is going to be vacant for the next 3 to 6 months, the way I see it. Well, not vacant, but unused, because the program can't happen there. It's been stated that some of these clientele will not wear masks when they come into the building. And right now that is the standing orders. You have to wear a mask when you're in the building. So if people aren't going to adhere to the rules, we can't have it open. So it felt to me, especially, that Primetime isn't using the entire square footage that was there in that building, but the library could make use of it and even still have some space possibly to have some other staff in there with them. But that it would be the quickest way to get the library open. Primetime could be relocated to some other space that they could possibly be able to open immediately and continue their services without stopping them for what they're doing now. And in 6 months from now, when they are allowed to open again, that they would be able to have modifications done if they need to or whatever to be able to continue what they're doing now. This, to me, is not about shutting Primetime down. It's about using a big space that is not going to be used anytime in the near future.
May I ask one question, and I'm not even sure who would answer this, maybe you, Madam Administrator. I totally get everything Mr. Pilling just said, and there's nothing to really be disagreed with. He's just giving factual statements, evidence. My only concern is, at what point, if we were to move the library, we don't have any funds, to my knowledge, to address the issues that have been outlined by our public safety officials. So at what, like, how does the library issues get addressed?
So.
Sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought Jim was going to answer that because his light went on.
I didn't want to interrupt you. So
no, it's okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Commissioner.
Okay. So, yeah. So thank you to all of you. I think the town administrator and Health Agent Pilling described things very well. I'd have thought that I said it myself, quite frankly. So I appreciate the two of you for articulating the current situation so well. That's the big question, Mr. Chairman. And it's a question that we're going to have to, all of us are going to have to delve into and try to figure out, because the writing's on the wall. If the library does move to deal with the current problem, at what point are they going to move back? And without the funds being allocated currently at this moment in time, the answer is going to be, we don't know when they're going to move back. So we could have a situation where we have Primetime and the library needing to occupy the same building. So that raises another point that I'd like to make. And this is a little outside my purview as a member of the Pandemic Reopening Task Force. However, as a building official, does Primetime need to go back into that building? Has that program changed through the years to a point where they can be at a smaller facility? And
No.
are we moving the library to be a more permanent move, and Primetime could go to another location? I don't know the answer to that. I want to put it on the table, and I want us to have a healthy discussion about it.
Mrs. Souza or Mr. Ferry, do you want to comment to the last question about has the function or program of Primetime changed enough that you could occupy a different space?
Can I answer that? I'm Alice.
Of course you can.
No,
Mrs. Souza.
I don't think we can, because that's why we put the addition on to this building, because we didn't have enough space for the things that we need to do. We have to have lunches, we have to have breakfasts, we have to have meals, we have to have activities, we have to have staff. And we need this whole building when we're going to get this open. But I have a suggestion for the library, and I don't know if it's off the wall or what, but we have 3 schools in this town that have libraries, that have the internet services and all of that staff thing that they need at the library. I don't know if it would be lucrative or possible for that to be used by the library for the one-on-one, for the use of the computers and all the other things that they need that we don't have here right now. What we have here is what we're using. So that would all have to be added on.
So
I have
only
an
to
answer
know,
for that.
Mrs. Souza, I think that the schools are closed to the public right now, so that's also
Well,
closed.
I have an answer for that when it's
Yep.
open.
Mrs. Tavares, and then I want to go to Mr. Pilling and then to Mr. O'Connor, who has dialed in. Mrs. Tavares?
When schools are open, every visitor that needs entry to the school needs to be quarried. And that's their policy, not ours. And even when I go in, I need to be quarried to do anything with the school. And that's just the way things are right now. So that's not a practical measure for us to do, for the general public to use the schools. And I think any parent child would probably agree to not having random people enter the schools.
Yes, we do, Mrs. Tavares, to piggyback off your point, we do also, I have at least received just like complaints from concerned citizens about just having the elections at the elementary school. So that does happen. Mr. Pilling?
Yes, so I've been sitting in on all the meetings with the school reopening committee, and we've been struggling with how to open the school in the physical building, whether we do remote learning, whether we do some kind of hybrid scheme. But ultimately, it seems to be floating around that both the gym and the library are going to be effectively closed for what they are, because you can't necessarily make them happen, and they're going to become classrooms because they just need the space. Because now, instead of a classroom of 26, you're at a classroom with 10 or whatever. So you need more rooms, and sterilizing the library would be difficult. Same thing with the gym. You can't have people in the locker rooms and doing all that. So I think certain programs are going to get cut. We're still waiting to hear from DESE, which is Department of Education, on a lot of that stuff. But I think the library at the schools are going to be closed for a little while longer, like at least through the first of the year.
Mr. O'Connor, you were trying to speak before, and I think you dialed in. So I do just want to circle back to you. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. You can hear me now?
Yep, perfectly.
Oh, good. Yes. Sorry about that. So, the need for libraries will continue. And libraries all over the Commonwealth will be reopening, we hope, at some point. So the needs of residents of the community for libraries, as Jocelyn expressed, and it goes beyond the needs for access to computers, although that's certainly critical. The libraries are a community asset that we need to figure out. And I appreciate that this is bringing to the forefront these longstanding issues about safety in the building. And it's just confounded by the COVID-19 pandemic. And so it's good that we're having these conversations now. I don't know what the solution is. We heard from Mrs. Souza and Mr. Ferry about the needs of Primetime, that those haven't changed in a way that opens up that space for other uses. It's a dilemma, but that's just what I have to say at this point. Sorry, I gotta stop that call. Thank you. So that's all I have to say at this point. I'm just engaged in the conversation, want to hear what others have to say. appreciate that there's an effort to raise the library issues up in the current pandemic, and we will find a solution to having the library up and running when the Commonwealth says it's good to go for libraries to do so. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do want to go to Mr. Diarruda. Sir, you might need to unmute yourself. Let me see if I can do it for you.
Well, I've done it already.
There you go. Sir, you have the floor.
I just have a question about the timing of the schools and the libraries reopening. I mean, if the schools are reopened, would the libraries already be reopened, or would they reopen at the same time?
Mr. Pilling, do you want to, or
So
Madam?
that there wouldn't be a,
Well, I was referring to the libraries that are in the schools, that those would not be able to open as a library in the school, just because I think they need the classroom space. And the staffing for cleaning and all the rest of it, and sanitizing with the amount of kids that would be going through. They're trying to figure out how to do lunches at the schools, and talking about going to half days of school and canceling lunches. And there's a whole lot of stuff on the table right now. As far as opening libraries go, like Mr. O'Connor just said, the state's going to be given the go-ahead for libraries to reopen. However, they still have to conform with all the guidance, and that's where we're struggling, is we can't fit more than 2 people in the library and have all the sanitization of the bathroom, and the bathroom's in the hallway. You know, so there's a lot of other issues going around with the Dayton library, but I was referring to the school library.
You're on mute, Mr. Diarruda. Hold on. There, yep, you're good. We can hear you now.
okay, so that was sort of to reflect back to Alice's initial suggestion of using the schools for library services. There wouldn't be an overlap with students there, so a Corey situation wouldn't be required, I think. So I just wonder.
I missed the end of that. Madam Administrator?
I just, I'm trying to wrap my mind around that, and I'm just looking for some clarification from Mr. Diarruda. So is your suggestion, I just want to make sure I have this right, is your suggestion, and it's piggybacking off of what Mrs. Souza stated, to, while the schools are closed down, to conduct library services out of the school libraries, and because the schools are closed down, there would be no need for the Corey? Is that what you mean? Do I?
Right.
That's right. Okay. I think, and I haven't had those meetings with the school, but I think they are having pressure to reopen in the fall. So I'm not sure if that would work out. And with the smaller teacher to children ratios allowed, I don't think we have the space. I think they're going to find a lot of spatial issues. So I'm not sure how practical that is, but again, I haven't been meeting with them, and if that's the chosen alternative, we'll have to explore that. But I think there's some obstacles there.
Yeah, not just that, but and I'm not even giving, please everyone understand, I'm not giving my opinion on this as an option, but I do think there would also be some bureaucratic hoops to jump to get the permission to do this, and that would take some time. It would take a few weeks, I'm sure, and at that point, you know, we'd be into July or August, and then the schools are going to open up in a month. So I'm just not sure of the logistical viability of that as an option. Mr. Pilling, did you want to add anything on this, or we can go to the next person if not?
Mr. Chairman?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I have a couple of comments. First, I'd like to hear from one of the board members for the Council on Aging, or Primetime rather, to see if they echo Mrs. Souza's sentiments about the space that's needed. Not that I doubt her, I just want to make sure that we are all talking about something that's factual and real, because we don't know if the people are all going to return. she may be getting people calling her saying yes, but some family members may think otherwise before putting their elderly parents or loved ones back into a situation like that. So that's first. Secondly, I have had lineal thoughts about how to permanently fix the current library, and I've worked with CPC on a potential project that would fully renovate the building. Now, I don't look at it as renovating the library. I look at it as renovating the Carnegie building, which we all are stewards of, and we have to ensure is here for future generations. So if this is just a thought, if the Primetime program could be located either in a smaller facility until the Carnegie building goes through the CPC process and the renovations, and I'll make no bones about it, it's going to take a couple years to do that, then at least the library would have a home in the interim and the Primetime program could still function. So I just want to be open-minded about this. So
I did. So I want to go to Mrs. Souza and or Mr. Ferry, but before I do, I just wanted to add, not giving my opinion on your statements, Mr. Commissioner, but I do agree that regardless of the quote unquote fate of that building as a library or not, I'm referring to the Carnegie building, that I think residents in town would want to see that building restored to its original pristine
thank you.
date. So I agree with that. Mrs. Souza and or Mr. Ferry?
It's Alice. I will speak. This building is really needed for the Primetime building. That's why we put the addition on. We do need all that space. And as I talk to you now, people that have been home with their families, we're going to get more clients because they want them out. They don't want them home. They'll find their problems that have expanded and they need more room and more space, and they're going to want to send more people here. So I don't think that we're going to have less people. I think we're going to have more.
Mr. Ferry?
Before I speak, see if Mr. Alley has something to say as a board member.
Yes, any council on aging members. You're muted, Mr. Alley. 1 sec. Let me see if I can unmute you. Can you click the unmute button in the bottom left-hand corner, Mr. Alley? Yeah, it doesn't let me unmute him, Mallory. Can you see if you can unmute him, Madam Administrator?
I was just trying to do that. Did you, are you in the managed participant side thing? Oh, there we go. He did it. Hi, sorry.
Hi, Mr. Alley. Yep, we can hear you. You have the floor, sir.
I have nothing great to say. Everybody's beating it around. I just think that time is the factor here. Where do we go with this time? What are we going to do in the meantime? And there's a lot of let's go right, let's go left. And it's a mumble jumble right now. And I think we've got to take it one step at a time. As Mr. Pilling was saying, he's been working on numerous projects to get certain things going, and I think that's what we have to do. I don't think you should target Primetime as for a library, to be honest with you. That building took a lot of work to get where we are. But if push comes to shove, we may have to. Right now, I would like to see open-minded about where you could go with the library and other buildings. I don't know if space is required, a certain amount of space for people. They're saying the library can only have 2 people, Primetime can have 9. What's the difference in the reason for that, Mr. Pilling?
Tim, what's the difference in what? What was the end of that?
The amount of space to have people. The library's allowed 2 people. Primetime, you said, was allowed 9 people. Why the difference? Could you tell me?
Well, it's the open square footage of the space. Obviously, the library space is all occupied with all sorts of shelving and stuff like that that limits their amount of space. Primetime has multiple rooms in it. the library only has that one office / break room. And then you got the upstairs and the downstairs. There's the little kid room in the back, which has already been closed apparently for a while, which I think Chief can weigh in on better than I can on that. But when you get into a room, you have occupancy of each room. But when it's all one big floor plan, you get extremely limited in what you can do.
Thank you.
I had 2 points, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, absolutely, Mr. Ferry.
So what exactly, first question is, what exactly type of library services are we trying to provide at that Primetime building at this time?
Mrs. Tavares?
Well, I'd at least like to be able to provide some internet service, one-on-one patron assistance at the minimal. I don't know what else to be able to do. I'm not sure what would fit. I know that any collection space has to also be ADA compliant. It would mean 36 inches in between stacks and the ability to turn around in a wheelchair. I don't know. I don't know what we are able to offer. So at least one-on-one, you know, whatever we can provide. People are going to need assistance with computers. People are going to need to file unemployment claims as the economy continues to go south. People are going to be able to, they're going to need to file our SNAP claims. Those are rising in Dayton from December. People are going to need internet. If people are filing for unemployment, they may not be having, they might be cutting their internet. These things are real and they're an impact to Dayton, and this is where the library steps in. So I'd like to be able to help provide our residents with these necessities. And I appreciate what everyone is up against. I really do. But our services affect everyone. All of our services affect everyone. I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
May I ask a question and I feel like this question was asked before, and I apologize if it was answered, but during the pandemic, like let's say Primetime, we're at phase 4 tomorrow and they can open. I don't know, I'm making this up, obviously. What services would Primetime be offering?
We still offer the same services that we've been servicing all our clients. We take care of all of the people in Dayton over 60 years old. We do those things too. We do the SNAP programs, and we do the filling out papers, and we do the SHINE programs. We do all of that stuff. We're still doing it, but we're doing a lot on the phone. We're not doing it one-on-one, but we would be doing it on one-on-one now. I guess this is going to be opening up for us. But I will not allow, and I don't know whether they'll allow me to go back to Lincoln Village and Bella to go back to Lincoln Village, because we need this space. We need the space for the meals. We need all of this space.
Can I ask you another question, Mrs. Souza?
Sure.
And I'm asking because I literally do not know. Other than like phone consultations, what services has Primetime been able to provide during the pandemic?
Right now, we haven't been doing too much except on the phone. It hasn't been one-on-one when nobody comes in the building. We don't even let the exterminator come in the building. So no one comes in the building. But we still are doing services because we still have to do reports. We still have to do all of the things that Boston wants, that Bristol Elder Services wants, and town reports, and et cetera, et cetera. We still have to be doing all of that.
Okay.
Whether we're here or there.
I appreciate that, Mr. Souza.
Thank you.
And again, I asked because I literally did not know. Madam Administrator, you've had your hand up and you've been patient. Yes, you have the floor.
No, that's fine. Other people can talk before. I just wanted to indicate some other like structural reasons why we're looking at Primetime. We did actually talk about other suitable spaces for this, and Primetime just worked out the best. we are limited. This town is very active. It has a slew of very active boards. You're all members of them, so you know that. Our Zoom account for a meeting like this has been an incredible demand that there's a serious amount of scheduling going into them. The the Old Town Hall meeting room is currently the only meeting space that we can bring back physical meetings. So we had talked about maybe moving the library into the upper floor of Town Hall for spatial concerns, but that's our meeting space. So how do we give up our one and only meeting space to accommodate for the library? Then we talked about the Lions Club Pavilion, and there were a slew of, that would cause a kickstart a whole other slew of steps to take if we were going to do that. And then we looked at Primetime and we said, well, when the library can do some extra, taught time or any sort of program, like I think she had a paint night once, things like that could start to be explored. The Old Town Hall meeting space is right there. The Lions Club Pavilion is right there. These are structures that the library is already using to expand their services on a regular basis. This is what they use to provide services, and it would all be right there. So that's why Primetime looked like a good spot. We did talk about the lower level of Town Hall, and then we talked about our upcoming Town Hall renovation project that, are we going to move everybody in there and then just disrupt it because we have this Town Hall renovation project in the wings that is, we thankfully to the residents of the town, we got funding to kickstart at Monday's town meeting. So, the decision wasn't made lightly. I'd love to hear if somebody has another building they are thinking about and want us to explore that, that's fine. Another reason that Primetime really sticks out to me is the bathrooms. I know I keep talking about bathrooms in COVID-19, but it's a concern of mine. And there's 2 bathrooms at Primetime, and one could be designated public, and it will be regardless because the Council on Aging is operating out of there, and this by appointment. One of those bathrooms will be for employees, and one of those bathrooms will be for public use because we can, and there's no ADA objection or access or barrier to that. But there's 2 bathrooms where the hand sink is inside the bathroom. That is not the case with the library. And washing your hands has been the most consistent guidance throughout the entire pandemic and the best means of protecting yourself, aside from maybe a mask, that we can provide. So I know I talk about bathrooms a lot, but that's why.
No, I appreciate that, Madam Administrator.
Dr. Z?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just going to call on my colleague, Selectman Goulart.
I'm trying to form an opinion or make a recommendation, but I need more information. At the library right now, how many people can work? How many employees can work in that building at one time?
Sorry, I was muted. 2.
2.
Okay, so those, I assume it's a rotating schedule?
Yes.
Jocelyn?
Yeah.
Yes, I think she's
Okay.
muted. Sorry.
Okay, so whoever is working in the library, does that exclude you, Jocelyn?
No, we just take turns, work from home, and
No. Let's only talk about physically present.
no, it doesn't.
No, let's assume you're in your office. Are you telling me 2 other people can do
No.
curbside?
No.
All right, so I will ask the question again. In the library,
2 employees total.
and you could be one of them.
It could be 1.
All right, okay, 2 max. Now, I heard that we could have 9 employees present at Primetime, or is it so many employees and so many others from the public that equals 9?
9
The
people.
latter. The
We have
latter.
9. We have 9 staff members.
No, wait, Alice, please, let me direct this. Right now, I just want library information. I'm trying to figure this out because I have heard so much stuff that it's not making sense. So please let me do the questioning. This is directed at library staff, whether it's Ron O'Connor or Jocelyn. All right. So I heard 9 people can be at Primetime. What would the composition of those 9 people be?
If it were the library, Selectman Goulart, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm only talking about library functions, operations, employees right now.
It could be a mix of staff and public.
Okay, all right, that's what I needed to know. Now, is there consideration of if space were to be available at the Primetime building, would there still be work being conducted from the library? In other words, could you split services like curbside pickup will be at the Main Street facility and other kinds of services might be available at Primetime?
I think it would have to be, Nancy.
Okay. And when I say other services, I know you run a lot of children's programs. And so when the day comes that you can do those things again, right now, I'm not talking about that. I guess I'm really talking about, I'll call them adult services, okay? Because I had heard things like, let's move the whole library to Primetime. And I'm thinking, that sounds like a nightmare to me. So in this phased opening of libraries, is, in your opinion, either Ron or Jocelyn, if we get to a, I'll call it fully phased adult service operation for library patrons, do you think that under the, whatever the last phase is going to be, between those two buildings, we will be able to return the majority of adult patron services?
I would hope so.
Again, I'm not talking about the kids' programs. I'm only talking about right now, I'll call them grown-ups.
Yeah. Once we get to the all clear and we can have large groups, I would think so.
Okay, so another question that relates to all right, so we talked about, I've heard people talk about public access for computers. So if there were a area designated at Primetime for public use of computers, how many people could we legally accommodate because of spacing, including the employees that would probably go in there and come out to provide one-on-one assistance?
How many Primetime employees would also be there? It would be 3, maybe 2 library employees, maybe 4. Public.
So how many, if you have
well
2 or 3 employees, how many of the public maximum could you accommodate at one time if they all said we need to use computers to do the kinds of things you talked about?
I would think only 1 or 2, assuming that the Council on Aging would also have their clients to service as well. Because we would still have to be within that 9
Right.
cap.
But everything's appointment only, so you would work with the other, we've
Right.
already, we've asked other departments to do this, so that's not just for this. You work with the other departments around you to minimize the number of people coming into one building.
So at a maximum, it would be 4 max.
Okay, because what I'm trying to figure out is, I think the actual physical presence of Primetime clients is not going to happen right away. I'm trying to figure out if there is a way that Primetime, I'll call them Council on Aging employees because it's all inclusive. If there is a way that Council on Aging employees could carry on their duties in the Primetime facility, if none of them can go back to Lincoln Village and use office space there, so could the could the Council on Aging employees occupy a space at Primetime so they could continue to provide services, at least at the level they're providing them right now? And also, if there is enough space so that there could be library services provided in another part of that Primetime building. I got to tell you, I have a real concern about making a major change like relocating Primetime and moving most of library into Primetime. I'm going to speak from experience. You know how long it took us to get a police station? Because when I was on the Board of Selectmen between 7 and 10, we made extremely necessary repairs to that old police station. And part of the delay was everyone thought when we, quite frankly, patched the rat holes and plugged up some of the other problems and eliminated the rodents that were in the building, there were people that felt that, oh, there's the solution to the police station. And my concern is we want a new library. If you move the bulk of your services into Primetime, you're going to be dealing with the same thing. I don't want to do anything that down the road is going to hinder, harm, or negate the chance of getting a library, because it happened with the police station. So you got to keep that in mind. I realize we're dealing with an immediate situation, but that's all we were doing at the police station. That was between 2007 and 10. We just got that police station, what, 1 year ago? Well, it was completed maybe 2 years ago. I realize that you're a little further down the funding list, but whatever we do relative to the library in this town is going to affect public opinion. So keep that in mind, please. I'm looking for a way to accommodate both programs using both buildings to be in compliance of everything we have to be in compliance with. And I agree with Jim Aguirre when he talks about doing something about the Carnegie Library. But again, we have to be very careful what we do with that building, because the effect it will have on a town meeting vote to get a new library.
Yes.
We got the history. I'm not the only one that remembers this. So we got to move carefully. So let's now to just focus on, and anyone, library or council on aging or anybody, do you see a way, Todd, Jim, anybody, that we could run 2 programs? I don't mean bringing clients back to Primetime, because that's going to be a while, but we could run 2 programs, library and council on aging, using these 2 facilities so that we could continue to service people, try to address the computer situation for the public, and still not detract from the fact we're desperate for library space, and this is not the solution to how we're going to resolve all of the problems in the library building. That's what I've been trying to deal with.
So before we answer that question, I'm uncomfortable voting on this before, or even really, I still really don't have my mind made up on what the solution is, because my concern is, okay, now we could temporarily have the library there. We could temporarily have Primetime or Council on Aging there. But what happens when Primetime is allowed to go back to normal services? And now we have the library stuck there. Mind you, Selectman Goulart, we don't have the money to redo the library. So now we're in the same situation we were in before we started, which is the library has no place to go permanently. Selectman Pacheco.
Yes, I agree with what both of you have said. And I also have a concern. It may make sense to move the library to Primetime, but there's no plan what to do with Primetime when that becomes available to open up again. And that's very troubling for me. So at the moment, I need more information, but I'm not interested in moving the library at this time without a plan for Primetime.
That's
now,
fine.
It may make sense. It may make sense to move Primetime to the Carnegie building in the future, but that is, as Mr. Aguirre said, a couple of years down the road. We'd have to do major renovations as well as putting in a kitchen. I would be in favor of moving the library to the 2nd floor of Old Town Hall, and if we have additional meetings, some of those meetings could be held at the police station. We have that room there also. I understand that on the phase 1 and phase 2, we can't all get together necessarily, but we will be entering, hopefully in a few weeks, phase 3. which may give us an opportunity to have more people come to a meeting. But I'd be more interested in moving the library to the second floor of Old Town Hall if that is feasible and realistic.
I want to go to Madam Administrator, and then I think Council on Aging member Tom Ferry had his hand up as well. Madam Administrator?
So my comments are not in response to Selectman Petito, so I apologize if Mr. Ferry's are. I just had a question is why we wouldn't move Primetime over to where the Council on Aging before COVID-19 came out, where they were operating. My thought is once Primetime and those similar type of programs are able to be open under the guidance of the state, we will likely be able to mingle again. I feel like those go hand in hand because of the vulnerable population. So in my thought process, and it's predictive, so I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know, but I'm just sort of stringing things along. If Primetime's able to open up at a time when it's safe for people to get together again, we would move Council on Aging back over to their original offices at Lincoln Village, I think. Why would we not have Primetime and Council on Aging operate out of that same area? And that's just a question. And then just to Selectman Goulart's point, your second initiative, that second block about running the two programs concurrently out of Primetime was specifically what the pandemic task force discussed and why we decided to bring it here to this group of folks today. Well, not today, but for a meeting. I'm sorry, Mr. Ferry.
Thank you, Madam Administrator. Mr. Ferry, the floor is yours if you so choose.
Yes, historically, to respond to Mallory and Ken, the 300 Lincoln Ave location for COA was never big enough for the Primetime operation. It's big enough for some of the classes that COA provides, not Primetime, such as the dancing, the dance classes and stuff like that. Alice, I'm sure, will speak further on that. The Primetime is a little bit larger dynamic, and it's so many different programs that go in through the whole day curriculum that we offer, and also the kitchen needs also are not large enough at that building. My other point I wanted to make before Ken and Mallory spoke, it's kind of a question, just a point of order, trying to think out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure Todd can weigh in on this. I think I know what the answer is going to be, but the use of the computer lab at the 300 Lincoln Ave, would that solve the library's needs, or would that cause a problem bringing the population into a high-risk community?
That was my other concern, Mr. Ferry. I don't know who your question is specifically to, Madam Administrator or Mr. Pilling?
Yeah, it's mainly towards Todd, but there's a computer lab there now.
No, there isn't, Tom. Tom, there hasn't been a computer library there for quite a while because we had problems getting the internet in there, so we don't have a computer library there anymore.
And I was concerned about inviting a population in there anyways to the high-risk community. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
As long as it was separated, it would be okay that there's separate entrance. I don't know where this room is that we're talking about, but as long as they're not going in through like the housing end of it and they're using a separate entrance, it would be okay, but I don't know about parking and all the rest of it. But.
Yeah.
I don't think it's okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't think it's okay because the tenants have privileges to those buildings first. They have priority to those buildings first before anyone else. And that would have to be, scheduled out. And that right now, we do have the facility to use for exercise and Tai Chi and so forth and so on. But it's all in cooperation with the housing authority. They have priority. If the clients want to make a party or do anything there, they have priority. They live there. That's their building.
I guess I just wanted to be clear. If we had money laying in an account right now and we had started to renovate or repair, whatever the word is, restore that Carnegie building for the library use, then I would be prepared to make a motion and vote, or at least accept an motion and vote to temporarily move the library over there under the guise of, in a few months, this is a hypothetical, we would have a library that they would then move back to that would meet their needs for right now. That's not the situation we're in. What it seems like we're being asked to do is temporarily move the library over there without a long-term or even really a short-term plan on how to get the library back to where it needs to be and to resume its normal services. And I don't know. It's a tough decision because there's so much that we don't know, but it's tough because we don't have any silver lining in terms of how to get the library's situation addressed with all the many issues that have been ongoing for years. These aren't new issues. Madam Administrator?
I meant to talk about this earlier, but the conversation went in a different way. It was about funding. Somebody brought up a question about funding. So as I think everybody's aware, we did the ADA audit. The library is obviously one of those properties. They came in with a preliminary estimate about how much it would take to fix up the library for ADA purposes. It's about $75,000. I would say that's a very, very liberal estimate. I think it would be much more. That ramp alone is concerning. And I see Selectman Pacheco nodding. I think he agrees. We've talked about it says that further study is needed, so I think we'll find more things.
I agree. That's a low number.
Yeah.
Very low.
So then there was another number thrown out, or not thrown out, excuse me, discussed with the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee. I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but there was a public hearing. It seemed like there was support to fix up some of these preliminary items, but what is on the table right now, how I view these three letters, these three reports, is that our library building as a structure imposes on our ability to provide library services to the town. And if we are unable in the structure to provide the library, we need to provide some sort of solution to that. We will risk losing our accreditation. If that happens, then a lot of the services that people rely on in a modern library, they go away. The internet subsidies that the library have, that also goes away. So as we, as a municipality, are about to embark on kind of tight, tough fiscal times with unemployment and all of that, not only does the demand for the library go up because people need those services, but then we would have to pay for them. If we didn't have a building, we would lose our accreditation, we'd lose the sales affiliation, and it would cost us more to run it. So this is the basis as why I have a lot of energy about solving this problem. In whatever way that is. I want us to still be able to have a library for people to go to because I think it is important part of the community, obviously, and I want that accreditation to stay.
May I ask a question of you, Mrs. Tavares? Would, if the library were to temporarily be housed out of Primetime, how would book services work? Would you be able to resume just the normal checking out of books?
I would expect we could still provide curbside services at the main library, $3.95.
Okay.
Delivery could still go there. I think it would be a lot to ask staff to shuttle books.
Yeah, no. Okay.
Good.
That makes more sense. Yep. Thank you. Mrs.
Nancy?
Selectman Goulart. I'm sorry, Mrs. Tavares?
No, I just saw Nancy her hand go up right when I was saying that. So
Selectman Goulart, you have the floor.
Part of what Mallory said kind of faded. I heard her mention 75,000, the ADA, too liberal. Then I heard Jim say that's not enough money. So Mallory, do you mean 75? You don't mean liberal, you mean it's too restrictive.
I know I shouldn't have said it like that as soon as it came out. I believe that it is too low. It is not an accurate.
Too restrictive, like Jim said. Okay, yeah, all right.
Exactly.
So
sorry about that.
Okay, I'll just scratch that. So since Jocelyn, when do we have any idea when sales services will return?
Actually, I found out today that there's a hopeful possibility delivery service will be back next week.
Oh, very good.
And delivery. That it won't be, we get daily service, well, at least Monday through Friday. We're not expecting that, but hopefully it'll start.
Okay. Thinking about what Dr. Z said, and what Ken said, and what others have said, I don't think we're going to make a decision today on how to solve this entire problem. That's
No.
clear. How does anybody feel about taking a bite of the apple, a bite at a time? For example, we know you can get curbside books, and hopefully in a week or so, the sales service will be back, so the public can get and return books at the library. So that seems to be okay right now. The next thing that Jocelyn talked about was public access to computers. It would seem if we could find a location for computers, whether it's a location within the Primetime building, whether it's within the meeting hall at Old Town Hall, whether it's in
Downstairs at Town Hall.
Regular Town Hall.
Town Hall.
Yes, Town Hall. I would not say the police station meeting room, absolutely not. No, that's
No.
not appropriate. But, and I don't want to move the whole library to the upstairs at Old Town Hall either, but if the next step is, how can we get computer access for the public? If we can solve that problem, at least temporarily, and see how it works, because if we solve it temporarily and find out it's not working, we've still got to go back and straighten that one out. So if we look at each one of these problems as a step and do this in a progressive manner while we're waiting for the state and whatever else is going to happen relative to either relaxing rules or, God forbid, tighten them up again if the flu comes back or whatever it is. If we could at least today think about the next step, public access to computers. Can we get this one resolved today?
Well, so can I ask a question sort of exactly in line with Selectman Goulart's question, which is, Mrs. Tavares, would it be possible, actually, let me back up. Mr. Commissioner?
Yes.
Besides cable committee and the food pantry once a month, who's really downstairs in that old zoning board office?
In Town Hall?
Yes, I'm sorry, at Town Hall.
Well, it's actually still under construction. It was demolished in part for the cable expansion.
Yep.
And it's been left that way because of the spending freeze. So that room is not technically habitable right now. However, and I've not heard much discussion about the lower level meeting room. I'm not sure if I don't think that's being used by anyone.
Sorry. That's what I meant, Mr. Commissioner. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So as far as I know, Mr. Chairman, that room is not being used. So if I'm following you correctly, we could set that up with the town electrician with computer stations. So that is an option.
Yes, that was exactly where I was going on that. But I do, Mr. Commissioner, just want to hear from library about that. So my assumption would be your curbside would continue at the library with some personnel doing that, Mrs. Tavares. And then you would have some personnel in this meeting room, which would be set up with the computers. And I just want to know your thoughts on this. Now, mind you, take away the meeting room. To Selectman Goulart's point, this would be the same for whatever space we're going to use. So I just want to know your thoughts about relocating the computers there and things like that.
Yeah, it would work in the short term, I think, especially if everything is done through appointments, which was in the library reopening. If we could have printing, just get a printer there and be able to help people with any online applications they need, any of those immediate things to get them through. That's all that I'm just looking at the immediate.
Absolutely.
The immediate
future. But what I'm also looking at, Mrs. Tavares, is the reason I personally don't really think Primetime is viable is, again, because when it comes back, you're going to be stuck. You could be stuck in that building and now have nowhere else to go. Whereas, so I'm just trying to think of something a little bit more long-term where we won't need to think about moving you when things go to phase 4, things reopen fully. Selectman Goulart?
Yeah, and to add on to this discussion, right now, sticking with the library, and then I want to just mention Primetime. So let's assume from today forward, we are going to address the issues relative to the library in Primetime as they come up. So right now, we're going to try to address public access to library computers, wherever they're located, whatever space we put them in. So it would also seem that, as I'm hoping, the regulations are going to be relaxed, and maybe the library can start offering some children's programs like they did under normal circumstances. We still have other space available that could be used for a children's get together. And in the good weather, with relaxed regulations on the number of pupils or children who could be there, in good weather, we can add the pavilion to that, because I know Jocelyn has run programs in different places, so that if the computer thing works out, wherever those computers are, and then regulations say you can have a larger group of children for a program. We've got Old Town Hall, we've got the pavilion. So we have some options that would be, again, some more steps to getting more services available to the public for the library. Now, in the same vein, there would be space in the Primetime building if in fact there were regulations relaxed that said a group of, or a presentation could be made, a small group or something, that would be available. That way, if in fact Primetime does come back, nobody has to move out and start over again. By the same token, if Primetime, the way we know it and the way it has been run, does not return, then a future discussion can be, okay, we're sure now, because of whoever's rules, regulations, lack of clients, whatever the conditions are, if it's determined Primetime is not going to come back, the space can still be discussed. And that's why I'm saying, if we do this step by step, I think it's a better route to go, because it will be less disruptive to be able to provide services, but we also have let's say backup positions if we have to have them, but we have forward positions to consider if in fact things change because of the state regulations and everything else.
Madam Administrator? And then Mr. O'Connor after Madam Administrator.
Mine is just a quick question, because Todd and Jim are here on this call. Just verifying the number of people, and maybe you can't answer right now, but the number of people that can be in that lower level room. I don't know why I call it a meeting room, the lower level room.
Just quickly, knowing the size of the room, I would say that you could fit between 3 and 4 people in that space.
Total, right?
Total, in total, correct.
At the 25% capacity.
Correct, yes.
Sorry, Mr. O'Connor.
Yep, Mr. O'Connor, sir. Oh, we can't hear you again. Hold on, let me see if he's muted. There you are, Mr. O'Connor.
Now
I hear you.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, I think I think Mrs. Goulart is on the right path with this. The library is the problem, pandemic or no pandemic, but we need to have a solution for the library for the short term.
Oh, crap.
Okay, so I'm losing my train of thought here, but Primetime is not the solution necessarily for the library unless we know the future of Primetime. And I think that's the great unknown, is whether or not the population served by Primetime, a very vulnerable population as we approach the fall with the flu season and the possibility of a second wave of COVID-19, and whether or not we will see Primetime being open. So we don't know that, but what we do know is that library services, or certainly hope that library services will become open to the general public in some form sooner than later. And so I I like Mrs. Goulart's thinking on this, is let's find a place for those high priority needs of the library to be met. And so my only question is whether or not that computer capacity currently exists in Primetime, if that's a more immediate solution, or if you can get computers up and there's more space there. I guess that's what I'm getting at, is if the library can be up and running in some capacity sooner than Primetime, does it make sense to use Primetime if they have the computer capacity there? And I don't know that. Are there computers now in Primetime?
Can I weigh in on that, Mr. Chairman?
Of course, Mr. Commissioner. Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's a great question, and I was going to have this discussion with the town administrator if that was decided. I don't know that we have the capacity for public access computers at either Primetime or at Town Hall. So we'd have to talk with the IT personnel. It may require us to put a dedicated internet service in for that service, but I don't think that service is going to be short-term in the matter of weeks. It'll be several months. So I'm not sure that's an expense that we wouldn't incur to accommodate that service, but I definitely think it is a concern and we'll have to address that.
Like, regardless of which building, we would have to provide a dedicated internet for that, because library internet access is much more, how can I say this, Jocelyn? You can't restrict it because it is public use. So even if they want to do something nefarious, I mean, we have rules in place so that you can track somebody down, but they can go anywhere. But with our systems, we don't necessarily want those to mix for safety reasons and security, internet security reasons. So we would have to provide a separate one either way, either building.
Does anyone have any other, I want to go on people we haven't spoke to. I know Mrs. Haskell's here, Britt Grealish-Rust is here, Chief McGee. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say? Anyone that hasn't spoken yet? Or Selectman Pacheco?
I will, Mr. Chairman. I just think that, from a public safety standpoint, we all recognize the issues in the current Carnegie building, the library, whatever you want to call it. And I just think that there needs to be a greater, outside of COVID-19, a greater discussion in this town about what the future is for the library. I have grave concerns, as I know Mr. Commissioner does too, with the safety of patrons in the building. And I don't see it as a plausible place to continue library operations outside of COVID-19. So it is definitely sparking a conversation that needs to be had on what the future of the library is, whether it's in that building. And I agree that $75,000 for ADA upgrades is very, very low in my opinion, because if you're going to continue to use the lower level of the library, that means now there has to be an elevator installed, which in my experience is very, very costly. So I just think that this is sparking a conversation that needs to be had, and it's a good one, and hopefully it continues as we move forward.
Absolutely. And to that point, Chief, though, we all understand, I think, that's sort of long term. It's going to take some time to get those things fixed, because it took a lot of time to get us to this point.
Agreed. But the possibilities of a library back in operation are a lot sooner, I believe, than, no disrespect to anybody, than a Primetime operation. And just because of the nature of what is being done.
Absolutely. Mr. Alley, Selectman Pacheco, Mr. Diarruda, Mrs. Grealish-Rust, Mrs. Haskell, does anybody have any further input? Yes, Selectman Pacheco?
Yes, I'd be interested in the timeline then to have Wi-Fi put in either the basement of the town hall or into Primetime. So we're just guessing it would take a while, but I'd be interested in the cost as well as how soon that could actually become a reality.
And can I ask a question sort of related to that, Mr. Commissioner?
Absolutely.
I know some work would need to be done, of course, for the computers to be relocated there and for the internet. But in the interest of time, is it not possible to have those computers set up and just have those computers use the existing Wi-Fi network that we already have? Is that not, or Madam Administrator, whoever can answer that?
So, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So under like Freedom of Information Act rules and things like that, library internet services cannot have some of the same restrictions that we would put on a municipal internet service. And so we wouldn't want those to mix because of a variety of reasons. So wherever you put the library temporarily or not, whatever you decide, a dedicated internet service or line feed separate from what our town network is would have to be installed. Mr. Chico, I will get that information for you. I'll send that over. Well, for the whole group, I'll get that.
And I apologize. You had said that before, Madam Administrator, but I heard you, but it didn't compute because I didn't realize there were restrictions on the, like, I know there's a password, but I didn't know that was considered a restriction. So now I understand. That makes sense. Mr. Commissioner, did you have anything else you wanted to add under that?
No, I agree. I have a little experience with IT, so the way the firewall is set up, it wouldn't be possible to allow a public access point with our current configuration. So I'm in complete agreement with the town administrator. It would have to be a dedicated internet service solely for the public access.
Selectman Goulart.
Where are we with hooking up to TMLP? Have we done that or just the schools have done it?
Madam Administrator? Yeah.
Just the schools right now. Oddly enough, the library does have an E-rate, so that works in our favor.
Yeah.
We had looked in on this a number of ways, and we're just not making it work with the small connection from the edge of our municipal campus to where the line is. It's certainly something we can talk about, but it will cost and quite a bit to do
So this
that.
would be a Comcast hookup?
The TML,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm misunderstanding
For
you.
now,
The
yeah.
TMLP is not available right now.
Yeah, it'll be Comcast.
Comcast?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like
Sorry.
the rest of the building.
Okay.
Anybody else have any further input? Yes, Mr. Pilling.
I'm gonna say the same thing I said to the committee of 24 for reopening the schools, because anytime anybody was floating any idea, like for example, we went to split shifts and eliminating lunches, and immediately it was, oh, it's gonna cost too much for the bus thing. There was always a reason why we couldn't do it. And everybody kept going back to the way we've done it. And I forget what her name was, but one of the teachers finally said, something's gotta give. We can't keep doing things the way we are. Something has to give to make everything happen. And everybody's got a lower level of service than what we had before. Town hall's not open on a regular basis. You know, all the services are less than what they were. Something has to give. So any ideas you got, feel free to float them out there. And there may be a way that the piece from your puzzle might fit with a piece of somebody else's puzzle to make it all work. This isn't about closing a program. It's not about, you know, tearing down a building or whatever. It's about figuring out the best way to get all the puzzle pieces to fit to make a puzzle that serves right.
That's good. I agree with that, Mr. Pilling.
And
Very
if I could just add to
Well
that,
said.
and if I could just add to what he just said, and in our best attempts to trying to bring those services about, we don't want to put ourselves in a box that when we say we got to back off from this, we've created another problem. So
Exactly.
I agree with what Todd is saying.
Yep. Anybody have any further discussion under this? So it sounds like to me, and I could be wrong, to my colleagues, Selectman Pacheco and Selectman Goulart, we're not gonna make any, we're not gonna vote today on anything specific, correct? No motion?
I'm not making a motion.
No, I'm just gonna, off the top of my head, in summary, I think where we are right now, I think we have consensus based upon needs that have been stated, what Mr. O'Connor said, what building and health agent and everyone else, and the chief too. The next step is to get public access to the computers, the service as best we can, the service that the library was providing before everything got shut down. So we're going to look at a couple of spots and figure out from a cost benefit status, which location is probably the best. They will be, wherever it is, will be by appointment. And at least we can get computer services to the public up and running under the guidelines that the town administrator said we must follow. And we know that books, the acquisition, borrowing and returning books, we know that's going to be okay for the time being. Is this where we are?
Yes, that's my understanding, Selectman Goulart.
Yep.
Council on Aging Primetime, Mr. Ferry, Mrs. Souza, how do you feel about this?
Well, I just want Primetime to open again. I've worked hard to get this program going, and I'm getting up in years, and I don't want to see it before I die. So I'd like to see it going again, and I think it will get going as soon as we can get the okay from the state to get it moving. And I think it's an excellent idea to put the computers at the town hall, because that way she'd have access back and forth without interrupting anybody, without interrupting us up here. And I think it's a great idea, but that's up to them, whatever they want to do. But here, I think it's going to be some confusion, but that's okay.
Mrs. Souza?
Yes.
Yep, I agree with what you're saying. And we appreciate the hard work that you do. So what it sounds like you're saying, Mrs. Souza, and correct me if I'm wrong, you like this potential solution of doing the computer internet services in either Old Town Hall or Town Hall, not Primetime, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Ferry, do you have anything?
Yes. I really appreciate this dialogue today, and I appreciate everyone's interest in both services to our community. And it appears that everyone sees the importance of it. And I learned a lot about the dynamics through the library, especially the internet stuff that Mallory brought up, and the other services that Jocelyn brought to our attention. So I think this is a good start, and the dialogue was very important for us to hear it, and I think it was healthy for Alice to hear it too, with all the stress, that goes around it, not just with the pandemic that we're dealing with. We look forward to helping out, and again, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So what it sounds like we're gonna do is get some sort of, I don't want to say figures, but some sort of a rough analysis of what it would take to quote unquote outfit some of these spaces that we've discussed for the computer/internet use. And then will we meet again, Madam Administrator, once we have more information? Madam Administrator, do we want to meet? I think we should, rather than do it at a Board of Selectmen's meeting, if we do it at a Board of Selectmen's meeting, I would like to have everyone there, or we can have another meeting like this. It's up to everyone else.
Did this work well for everyone? This
It worked
platform?
well for me.
Yeah, this is fine.
Yep. Yep.
I would just advocate that it would be this way again, because there's a lot of people involved,
Yeah.
and 10 is just not working.
Well, also, it's some people, as I understand, and I'm remembering something Mr. Ferry said, it's easier for them to do it during the day. So I'm okay with it being like another meeting like this. Selectman Goulart?
Dr. Z and Ken and Mallory and Jim and anybody else that can contribute this information, I think it would be wise if we got a ballpark figure and up to one of those, up to so much. And we encumber this against the current budget, because we know going into the new year, we're still wondering about state aid. I would not want to find out that we closed the year and we should have set this money aside.
I know what you're saying, Selectman Goulart. Yes.
A best guess. I think it should be, if we can, a priority.
Yep.
And even if we can't get it done before June 30th, if we can set some money aside based on whatever best cost estimate is available, I think we need to do it just from a financial standpoint to protect the town.
I support that. Selectman Pacheco, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
And then yes, Madam Administrator.
Yeah, I'm not sure what she's referring to as far as the money right now. Are you talking about the internet?
Yeah,
No,
what
she's
I'm
saying
looking
use
for,
funds from this year, not wait till to use next year, right, Selectman Goulart?
Yeah.
Like, let's do it this year.
Ken, what I'm saying is, we find out what it would cost to install a best guess, best estimate,
Yeah.
this Wi-Fi, whichever building it's going to be in, and before the fiscal year ends, we encumber up to that amount of money to be used to pay for this, because we don't want to get into the new year and say we can't afford to do it, because now we've gone backwards.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree, Nancy.
Thank you.
Yep, Madam Administrator?
Just on that, so we could probably, just so you know, we could probably put this on our CARES Act funding because it's directly related to kind of maneuvering ourselves. But also, I'll have this with you, hopefully, all the, Comcast cooperates and such with pricing for the spending freeze discussion that's slated for June 24th. That way we're not, up against, so we can make a decision then.
May I ask a question of anyone who may not be at the June 24th meeting? So not Selectman Goulart or Selectman Pacheco. Once we have those figures in our packets and we go to make that decision, do you want to be there? Are you going to come to the meeting just to hear what the discussion is around where these computers and internet will be situated? Mr. Ferry or Mrs.
I can be
Musa?
there.
Yeah, I'll get another background.
I'll share the information as well ahead of time, and anybody who has comments on it would be welcome. We can do that.
Yeah, is this meeting going to be at Old Town Hall?
Yes.
And we could do like we did stormwater, correct, Mallory? We could have people on computers and.
Yep.
We can do a- Yep.
Sounds good. All right.
Yep.
This is Alice. I said I would be there if it's on the 24th, yes.
Okay. It's going to be at Old Town Hall, Mrs. Souza, at 6 p.m.
Great.
Madam Administrator, can you do it as an appointment then, so we're not having people wait? If we don't have any other appointments, we can do it right at 6.
I just had that agenda in front of me, so I'm looking.
No worries. Is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
Yep.
I just want to say, the Board of Health is going to be meeting at 5 o'clock up there, so we should be done by 6, but we might even be able to stay for part of that meeting.
Oh, perfect.
We do it right at the beginning, so.
Perfect.
Yeah,
We were
just make
scheduled
sure,
for 6, but we got bumped.
yeah, just make sure the Board of Health wipes all the tables down for us.
Yes, absolutely. Extra clean. So if there's no further discussion, I want to thank everyone for coming and for, giving us your, honest feedback. It's really appreciated. It made it a very productive discussion, in my opinion, and we came to some sound potential conclusions as for solutions for the library. And so at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn if there's no further discussion.
So moved.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it and that motion passes. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you
Thank
on
you.
the 24th.
Okay,
Thank you,
bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.